Hello, it's time for another episode of Discipleship Today. My name is Bob Benson. I pastor Christ Lutheran Church out in Greenhurst, New York. We've been talking about discipleship. We've touched on a whole bunch of different aspects of discipleship, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like. I want to talk about the biblical example of discipleship. Jesus was a disciple maker. He went around and gathered up disciples. We know and we think, when somebody says disciples, we think of the original 12. But even Jesus separated disciples down. He had 3 disciples that he did everything with. They went everywhere with him. When he went deep in the garden to pray, 3 disciples went with him. When he went in to heal Jairus' daughter, 3 disciples went in with him. He had this inner core of 3 that always had access to his life, and he always had access to their lives. Then he had the 12 that he lived his daily life with. And I was challenged at one time to think about the 3, the 12, and the 70 that were sent out. And actually in McClintock and Strong's Biblical Cyclopedia, they list those 70 disciples. And I was challenged by my mentor to actually take a piece of paper, write down the 3 in my life, the 12, and the 72 in those different layers. He knew 70 or 72 people well enough to send them out. And that comes from a lot of different places. It was actually, there seems to have been a symbolism in those 70. There were 70 members of Jacob's household in Exodus 1:5. There were 70 elders of the Jews in Numbers 11:16. The Sanhedrin was made up of 71. So it was a tradition that when you were running something that you would have 70 to run that when it got big enough. And it actually lists the 70 that were believed to have been sent out by Jesus Christ. And I think it's good for us to think about who are the 3, who are the inner 3. And my mentor said that we need one person that we're walking alongside, one person that we're leading, and one person that's leading us in that 3. And I thought that was really interesting, because when do you go from being a disciple to being a disciple maker? We have to do both. We have to have somebody leading us along. And the 12, I actually put 12 spots down and put 12 names in, people that I live life with on a regular basis. And then what I was challenged with was the 70, is who do we know well enough that we could send them out and tell them to tell somebody else something and trust that they would do it in a way that was honoring and pleasing. And I think of that 3, 12, 72, and the way it was drawn for me was concentric circles, like a bullseye. Who's in the center? Who's the 3? Who's the next layer out, the 12, and then who's the last layer out in the 70. It's a biblical pattern, and it's not necessarily a bad pattern. Don't get hung up on the numbers. If you only have 2 in your inner circle, or if you have 4 in your inner circle, it's okay. But think of them as concentric circles, as you're pouring into people and you're being poured into. It is always good to be a disciple-making disciple. It means you're following. And ultimately, we want to be disciples of Jesus Christ. That's who we're following. But we need good human examples around us. So for discipleship today, let me challenge you to draw yourself out a target, a bullseye, put 3, 12, and 72 on it, and really think about it and pray about it. What happens with us as humans, we like to pick people that we want to be with. And that's not necessarily who God puts in each of those circles. I want you to be open to the leading of the Lord as He puts people on your mind, that these are people that He wants you to pour into. And like I said, they're not going to be your best friends all the time, but you need to pour into them. So for Discipleship Today, my name is Bob Benson. Thank you for taking the time to watch.